How do you pronounce your last name?
Chardello.
Chardello, okay.
There we go. Come on.
Are we sure that Linda is coming?
She said she was coming.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, more for us if she doesn't, right?
Okay, I call the meeting of May 7th, is that what it is? May 7th, the planning board to order. For those, I'll do a quick set of introductions. For those in the television audience, my name is John Weiss. I'm the chair of the planning board, to my right.
John O'Connell?
Martha Taylor, town planner.
George Morse, associate member.
And David Powell.
So just a couple of housekeeping issues before we get into the agenda. Just so everybody knows that next Tuesday is town elections, so those people who are watching, it's on the 13th, and voting both here behind Town Hall and in Byfield, and the polls are open from 8 in the morning until 8 at night. And then secondly, our town meeting is May the 20th, the following Tuesday at 7 o'clock at Newbury Elementary School. So we urge you, if you are watching, to attend, and urge your neighbors to attend as well. The agenda that we have tonight is we have an appearance from Angelo Cirelli, Chardello.
Right.
Close enough.
Chardello. We're also going to be going over some issues of Caldwell Farm and also the master plan. And so those are the three major issues. So first issue is Angelo. So if you want to maybe just pull that chair up and just come on and just chat with us about what you've been doing out there.
You
And
can turn that microphone around.
and we'll just turn this around so you can be on the, here you go. And just state your name and the name of the company.
Angelo Chardello from ERA Equipment.
So, I think that, Martha, can you give me an idea? I mean, you've been chatting lately, we just want a status report of where he is and where he will be soon, I guess is what we'd like to hear, okay?
I went down to the site on April 9th after our pre-construction conference at Playmakers. And I just looked at the site and chatted with Angelo and thought it might be, nice for him to come and give us an update. He's made a lot of progress
Good.
since the last time he was before the board. The site has been much improved. When we were there, the footings were going in for the building. And so I'll turn it over to Angelo.
Okay.
Yes, we got the footings in, the foundation in on the site. Next week, we're going to be grading everything to subgrade on the inside the foundation and outside. We got a little delay on steel. We're about 6 to 8 weeks out on steel. We had a little bit of a problem with putting our solar panels on the roof. And the structural engineer had to make sure we ordered the right bar joists
Sure.
and all that. So it kind of put us back like 2 weeks.
So the solar will be facing right on the road, because that's the south
No, I
facing,
think
no?
it's the other, in the back, like,
In the back?
yeah, like towards the Sled Road as you drive, not as you.
Oh, Sled Road, right.
But generally, you're going to be aiming towards the south, right?
South, yes.
Doing
where the sun
east
comes.
isn't too useful.
No, yeah, the company, is gonna
Okay.
put them on the roof because it's a flat roof.
Yeah.
Oh, I see, it's a flat roof.
It's a
I
flat
thought it
roof.
was, okay, good
Yeah.
enough. Okay.
It's a rubber roof, so they
You
want.
can put them orient them any way you want.
Yeah, exactly. In other words, we wanted to make sure the structural engineer had the right, we had the right steel and.
Great.
So they wanted to make sure that, that was a delay of about 2 weeks, but, the steel is on order. And pretty much once the steel goes up, then the masonry comes in and the roof goes on. Actually, the roof goes on before that and then start getting going,
Yeah. So your plan is to, right now, be finished maybe by mid to late summer,
I would say in the fall,
in the fall? Okay.
yes. I
Well,
would
that's
say
good.
fall, we should be.
Well, we're encouraged to hear that, and we're happy that you were able to get over the various hurdles that you had, and are there any board members have any questions specifically at this point in time? David?
No, my only thought is if you're going to do something about the wall in the front, as you are, and everything, and plantings, it might be nice if you could try and get those in fairly soon, because I think that would help to screen the site some from the road, which is what we talked about at the time.
Yeah, I think we're a ways for that because we got to build a wall there, and
Yeah, you set something up there, but I haven't seen,
Also, the stormwater, there's also the stormwater system is going in there, so.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah.
Say by the time he's ready to plant something, it'll be too late. You don't plant in July.
No.
Better off waiting till September or thereabouts, I would
Yeah,
think.
but I hope you can get in, this building season before winter sets in, anyway.
yes, I think by fall I should have stuff in, and I think it's better, like John said, the fall would probably be better.
Sure, yeah.
Because we got quite a bit, like, we got the drainage and the stone wall, and I just don't want to rush throwing stuff in there, If that's all right,
Okay. Do you have any questions of us?
No.
Actually, I've-
Everybody's been very fair and very nice.
I've got a couple questions. We had talked about Sled Road and the fact that it was actually a little bit farther south than everybody had thought. And so you were going to be needing to sort of recut the entry in off of Route 1 and also move those guardrails. Have you been in touch with Mass DOT at all about that?
No, but it's only, I don't know if you know, the guardrail kind of dives down.
Yep, yeah.
It's only the dive down that's going to be turning. And I did talk to a guy, Dana, who works for the state. He says you don't see that being a problem. It's only the cut down anyway. It's not like we're moving the straight guardrail.
Does he need a permit for that?
I don't know, but I'm sure that they will tell you.
Yeah, well,
You talk to District 5.
yeah, what I did is I talked to the guy, Dana,
Yeah,
who's.
I mean, the point is you're having access onto a state highway.
Yeah, he said if I was taking like the straight rail and turning it,
Yeah.
then he.
Just make sure you don't have a problem. Just
Yeah,
make
yeah,
sure you're
It's-
doing
I
everything.
would
according-
suggest you do go beyond talking to a guy whose first name,
Yes, yeah.
but get something
I'll get something
formal.
on email
Yeah,
or
get something
something,
on
yeah,
record,
yeah.
because,
Yeah,
Right.
it's like I think it was a 10-foot, the 10-foot dive down. That's there now. That's what we're turning in, and they said it's already diving down. They don't see it being a problem just to turn it in.
Yeah, so you're taking it from going this way to doing that?
Exactly.
so you're gonna do a 90 with it?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
and it's only the dive down.
Yeah, I understand that,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I don't see, doesn't see it being a problem, but I want to get
It
it.
shouldn't be,
Yeah,
but,
yeah, I'll
things
get
turn
it on
into
email,
problems if
yeah.
you don't ask
Yeah.
properly, so.
Yep. And basically, that's it. Sled Road, as Martha said, the whole time, Sled Road was in the wrong spot. We shifted it over, I would say, about 20 feet where it's supposed to be now, and then we had to break some ledge.
So is your work on Sled Road, which is really a public road, when are you scheduling that?
As soon as I do all the subgrading, I want to pave it this summer.
Okay,
I want to pave Sled Road, and I want to get all the binder down, at least get the binder down, and then in the fall, I could do my final paving.
all right.
And then, when I got my binder, I could do all my landscaping, and then before the winter comes, do my final paving. That's pretty much
Okay.
it.
The other concern there is that the property on the other side of Sled Road has been purchased, and I don't know what the schedule is going to be for the new owner to be doing the improvements.
That has been purchased, really?
Yeah, I talked to
Who bought
him.
it?
Bill DiFrancesco. He's going to put in a self-storage,
Oh,
Which, when you say the property.
both Drozdowski parcels.
Both parcels.
did he buy the entire parcel? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of upland to that. There's quite a bit of wetland, but there's a lot of upland there. Well, that'll be good, because there's some serious cleanup needed there.
Well, yeah, and you'll see, if you're going down Boston Road to the transfer station, there are new no trespassing, posted signs there.
really?
Because people who found out they had to pay a fee to dump things at the,
Right.
been dumping them on that property
Yeah.
instead.
So Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello, Kathleen.
Oh, it's Kathleen.
Let me interrupt.
Right, yes.
Who knew? Who knew?
Interstage left.
Who knew? Any other thoughts, anything else, concerns you may have on Sled Road, Martha?
No, I think those are the two. You'll just need to be mindful that he may be needing access for equipment and stuff as well.
That road is always to be open, now. You see where we gravelled it? It's roughly off a couple inches, it's a final grade, with the gravel.
It's certainly passable, as long as you
Oh,
keep
yeah, that
stuff out of the
road,
way.
that's it, that road's gonna, that road will never be blocked, or that road.
Right.
that
Right, well,
road-
what Martha's getting at is that there's the possibility that you'll have access to it, and this other use may have access to it as
Right.
well. Yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a town-owned road, so pretty much everybody.
Anything else? David? John? George? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Angela.
Thank you.
This next, let's get back to the minutes. Minutes of April 2nd.
Martha, next agenda.
Has everyone read the minutes for April
I
2nd?
think they must,
Yeah, I'm good.
Good. Can I have a motion?
So move to approve.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
Meeting of April 16th. Motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
actually, John, you can't second that because you weren't there. The only people who can
Oh.
vote on the 16th.
Well, that's right, yeah.
The only ones who
Pardon
can
me.
vote on the
Right.
16th are
Need another
Linda.
second,
John,
yeah.
Linda,
So we have
and
to wait
David,
for
so we
Linda.
have to wait.
Okay.
Okay, I have to wait for Linda. What happens if Linda?
It doesn't,
Right.
well, maybe George can step in because he was there.
He was there. Do you want to do that?
I don't, let's see if she arrives.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure
I
she
thought
said she was,
I saw something that said she'd be here at 7:30.
okay, so,
Am I right?
you may be, yeah, you may well. I have some recollection of that,
Okay, so
too.
the next item is Caldwell Farm Trail. As we indicated the last meeting that we had set up, we were moving to set up a meeting with the, not a meeting, but a walk with the members of the HOA at Caldwell Farm, as well as a number of neighborhood resident, or unit owners. And so 5 members from town, Martha, David, myself, Dan Streeter, and Doug Packer, along with 3 members from the HOA and what appeared to be about 10 other residents.
Well, they're actually technically all members of the HOA. You're talking about
Board.
the
Board.
HOA
Board.
board.
Thank you
right.
very much,
Yeah.
David. Members of the HOA board versus the HOA. And so we did a walk. It was 10 o'clock about 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago. I thought it was very productive and very positive. We basically traveled through the opening that had been created by the developer behind Unit 54, walked down and then around to the other area towards the Duff property, and then walked out to Elm Street. And along the way, we basically traveled what clearly was a marked trail that had been done by the developer. But we were unable to finish the walk, and so we're scheduling a second walk next Monday, where we're going to start at the same place, but instead of turning to the east, we're going to turn to the west and continue on there. And then after that, we will probably sit down with everybody and try to figure out what the best trail options are here, and then hopefully move forward with it.
Was the trail marked? How was the trail marked?
With paint on,
Yeah,
red
red blazes.
blazes on
Yeah.
it.
yeah.
Yeah,
And did it appear that there was still like a walking path there, or no?
It
No.
had been pretty much grown over, but there were parts of it that you could see where something existed at a point in time. But and since that was probably set out 8 or 9 years ago,
Oh, yeah, well, no, not that long, I would think.
Maybe, well, 2004, maybe, 2000.
It was before my time, and I was here 2005,
Oh, okay.
unless it was in that gap in between.
Well, yeah,
Yep.
you know, I'm not sure, because I looked at the date on that map that was being passed out to the residents.
06, was that 06?
Yeah, I think that was later,
So we
so,
did use, Martha
Yeah.
had found a map of a proposed trail, or a trail, that was part of the marketing information of the Colwell Farm developer. And it showed a trail kind of like doubling up on the eastern side and then hooking around and then coming back down towards west. But it didn't hook up to Elm Street. That-
No.
Right, it looped around.
You found that in your files?
Well, no, actually Carla had one, but there was one in the file as well.
Oh, so that's nice.
So,
Yeah, so we
Yeah,
used
so
that
that
as
was
the
kind of
basis,
the
as a basis
intention.
for discussions. Well, here's one that existed, and let's see to what extent we can, follow that. Are there other ideas? And so we had a lot of give and take with the HOA members and residents, et cetera, and we're just going to go back and continue.
right. And it looked like the blazes that were there followed that route. There was a wetlands crossing, and then it was a little bit like a treasure hunt, kind of going and finding the blazes, but we did find, a fair number.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the intention on that side anyway, the eastern portion.
Anything else, David?
no, I just think it's going to be a tough task to, I think, make a workable trail, even as a trail, whether the, residents may have problems with how close it comes to their properties and so on, is one thing, but I think as a trail, it's probably, to get a good trail, it's going to take some imaginative, but Dan's very good at that.
Yeah, I was particularly impressed with the eastern side where it got a little hilly, where I think it would be easier to establish something. Anyway, we're going to go back and figure
Yeah.
this out.
And I was actually encouraged to see that there is a fair portion of it that I think could be reestablished, that's a fair distance away from the residences and.
Oh, yeah.
And way down, substantially down the slope. I wasn't aware of the seriousness, I guess, the severity
elevation
of the-
difference?
Yeah, it was really substantial. I mean, if you're up in those units, you're looking down in the area that would be like in the, I guess, the northern part of the northeast. You're not seeing any trail. You're not
That's
seeing
towards the
people on
Duff
trails.
property, right?
Almost to the Duff. In
Yeah.
other words, if I'm talking about this area here and then Duff is over here. Over here, you can't see anything.
Yeah.
I mean, that entire eastern side, there's not much to be seen from down in or if going back up. You can just about see the roofs of the places. So in terms of that criteria, which is part of both the trail easement and the conservation easement, that talks about not being too close to the units, and that's certainly what their concern is. So.
Did you get any as response from town council in
I
relation
have not,
to?
and I think
okay.
it's because it's town meeting time and.
Yeah, right.
and
No,
she's just
I
otherwise
just wondered.
occupied. But I do have some questions into Ginny relative to maintenance, who has responsibility and things like that, and we have to have those answered as we're moving forward. Okay?
Yeah, I think they are fairly clearly set out, actually, in the documentation that we have.
Right, but
Right.
she needs to give us her opinion on stuff. Okay? Look who's here dressed in pink.
Ah, that's a relief.
Linda!
It's all right, you're not the only person who was late.
Oh, good.
No, you're not. No, you're not. But you are just in time. Anything you want to add on the trail?
No, I don't think so. So we'll just meet at the clubhouse again next.
Clubhouse at 10 o'clock next Monday.
Oh, that's worked, has it? Because I
Yeah.
hadn't seen anything
Oh, I
come back.
apologize. Yeah, Dan can make it, Doug can make it.
Okay,
So we're all set.
all right, good.
And I sent them, and Jerry has sent the email on
To whomever,
the
right,
HOA
yeah.
members, so.
Right.
And I know there's at least one member who will be there next Monday who wasn't able to attend last time, so we
Of
may
their
have.
board, or?
Well, it's Dick Bazargan.
Oh, okay. Well, he
So we
was
do
a-
know also that, well, when we finished the last walk, a number of the people who were on it kind of said, well, you guys do it, maybe we don't need to do it again. Do you know what I mean, to finish the walk? But my guess is there will be some people, that will join us. So.
Oh, sure.
Okay. So the master plan review, we sent out, or excuse me, Martha had sent out a note that it was this document that David prepared after several meetings that we had with Martha and myself, with the idea of trying to see the extent to which we could do we're not doing an update of the master plan, but we did an analysis of those things that have been completed, those things that we as a subcommittee felt should be brought forward, and those things that were still being worked on. And I think we'd like to see if we can go through it again and get input from the board. We're not exactly 100% certain what's going to happen with the update, except that it will not be funded this year. This existing fiscal year is my guess. That's fine.
That's better.
Yeah, that's
We
good.
couldn't get it going in time for the present
No.
one.
And so, what I understand is that we will, the Finance Committee and the Planning Board will ask for a deferral of the issue and not a no vote on it to the fall meeting. And during the period of time from over the summer, that we will have discussions with the FinCom and the selectmen and the town administrator and talk about what the collective idea about how we might want to move forward would be. So I think that's a pretty good idea. So I'm happy to do that. And but in the meantime, we had taken this upon ourselves, and I think that it's a good exercise for us to do this. And so David's going to do it on this, and this is good because then this way the community, if people are watching, they can hopefully read this. And
Right.
let's just start it.
Before we actually start, let me make a suggestion, because I was thinking about this today, having, I shouldn't say struggled probably, but I think to some degree, Martha and you and I struggled through this because it's a long document. I'm wondering whether it's worth just briefly, before we actually do that, to get some sense of what we as board members think the master plan should be about.
That was one of the issues I had when I was going through this, because it was kind of like not only were we evaluating what the ideas were established previously, was it 10 years ago, or how many years ago?
Yeah, well,
But
essentially,
how
yeah.
exactly what our priorities have changed, it kind of helps kind of going through this, okay, what direction. But I think that the only way you can stop by that is going through this.
But I think that's not a bad idea. I mean, let me just respond to what David has said. I mean, I think that what we were trying to do, but I don't think we did 100%, is that when we looked at this document, which has the goals, objectives, and implementation strategies, we kind of said, well, this is still relevant, and this isn't relevant, and here are some new issues, and we should try to take a look at these. But we didn't really ask the magnum opus kind of question about what is the purpose of the master plan and how is it integrated with the rest of the town, and how can we move forward on that. So I think going around the table and having a discussion about that's not a bad idea. David, you can start.
Well, okay, so I think initially what one has to look at is the purpose of a master plan is defined actually legally by the state in terms of what you must have in it. And so interestingly, the master plan has to have certain sections, and you have to look at certain things. You know, and if you send in, for example, if you send in a master plan and said, you know, well, we all want to live in a world where we can grow peas in our backyard, period, they would reject it. It's got to have the sections that we are going to, and so it's got to start with the natural resources, and they're even sequenced.
Criteria.
Right. So that's one thing. So you already have a framework, which is a given. I think within that framework is the interesting issue of how you use the stuff within the framework. And so for me, I began to feel that what I was looking at in terms of what the master plan had been 10 years ago was something that actually really lacked an overarching kind of, philosophy, viewpoint? And I said, well, okay, why was that? And in part, I think, was because, and it's kind of to be found in the fact that the mission statement or vision statement in the plan is pretty limp, frankly.
This
Yeah,
was,
the original one.
Yes.
I mean, it's motherhood and apple pie. It says,
not only that, but not many people are aware that we actually have a mission statement. Did you know that?
Well, I know
well,
because you were
my
looking
guess
for
is,
one.
yeah, that's true.
I was asked to find one at school, and I had to go through Tracy, and we were having a difficult
Right.
time finding it. And when we found it, it
Yeah.
was like, should this be revised?
Right, well, okay, I don't know whether it's in the version I have here. But it's it's a 3-line, I think I cut it out of this particular document.
Yeah, it's in the master plan, but
But well, I do have it.
suffice it to say you're right.
Okay, so, let me just, wait a minute. Okay, here we go. I've got another PDF, which will, here you go. Okay,
John found it page 4.
That's what it says. I haven't found.
Oh, you have the master
Haven't
plan.
found page 4 yet.
Ah,
Okay, summary of high priority
There you go.
vision
It's up-
statement. Yeah, it is 3
it's up on the
lines.
screen,
It's exactly 3 lines.
all right?
Well, let me say, my thought on this is that it's a very typical vision statement with nothing specific.
Right,
Because then you're supposed to go vision statement, goals and objectives, strategies. I mean, if you take the traditional way of doing this thing, right?
right,
And you're supposed to go from, the overarching thing is the vision statement, then you go to the goals and objectives, and then you go to specific strategies and implementation.
yeah,
And that's the logical sequence. Most people, throw stuff in like that, and which really, doesn't direct you anywhere.
right.
And so,
It's a neutral statement.
Yeah, but it's a good statement. I like it. I grant you, it lacks pizzazz, but
how
what
does
the
that,
hell?
how does that set you apart from, let's say, Newburyport when you read that?
Why do we have to be set apart?
No, but I'm just saying, Newburyport could have the same thing.
Sure they could,
And the
yeah.
point being is that from that, you don't know what direction you're supposed to go from there. In your mission statement, it kind of gives you a direction. That does not really necessarily give you a
Yeah, okay.
direction.
I'm okay with Newburyport having the same thing, same statement.
No, I'm
we
not
do.
saying that they have the same thing.
No,
I'm just
no, I'm-
saying that
okay, if-
every community could have that statement.
Yeah.
Everybody would want that statement pretty
Sure.
much, so.
Well, okay, not the specifics, but the overall tenor of it reminded me of Bush Senior and his problems with the vision thing,
oh,
right? In that, he sort of didn't have that. And what I would sort of find is that if you are looking at items which are in the master plan, they're very difficult to evaluate and judge based on this vision statement.
yeah,
Well, are they easy to judge? Because they fall in that category, so it's almost like check.
they should be easy to judge, because this is such a broad statement.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, so to me, it's very difficult to prioritize using this it's
mean-
very difficult to in fact, talk about consensus, community vision, whatever.
Yeah. My,
Anyway, enough of me.
You have experience doing these. How detailed were your master plans that you worked on as far as the mission statement? Were they as general as this?
I'd have to go back and take a look. One of the problems, the first two that I did were done under the auspices of the 701 planning grant, which was dictatorial in terms of what you had to have in. And the vision statement or a mission statement was not an integral part of it. It was, you were qualifying for federal highway, sewer, and water money. And so the federal government, not the state government, had certain requirements that had to be in there. I mean, it was worlds apart. Now, the most recent one that I was involved with which was in California, which was very, very different, and had a very thoughtful vision statement that took months to work out. A very involved process with, over 2,000 people involved in setting goals and objectives. And,
That sounds horrible, by the way.
well, it's a big city, and that's what they chose to do. They spent $2 million on it. But what they did was, they, in their vision statement, they talked about the fact that they couldn't have unbridled development like it had occurred in the past, that they couldn't have sprawl, and that they wanted to have development that was focused on transit-oriented development, and that it would be infill on existing areas. They have all of these other areas that could have been developed. And that was part of the vision statement.
So right there, you had an idea of the
So
intent.
right there, you
of
had
what-
the intent. So what's missing in our, well, that's different though.
Oh, no, I know. I'll explain that in a
This
moment.
looks like a poem. But what's missing in our vision statement is any sense of what Newbury is.
Well, okay, so.
And what it
yeah.
wants, and what we, or the collective group that worked on it, wants it to be in the future.
So, okay, what happened was then, when we were doing the master plan, suddenly there was this sort of, pants down moment where everybody realized we didn't have a vision statement, and we needed one. So everybody went home and did one, except not many people actually did. However, I did one. It was very lengthy, but what it ends up being is what you're talking about, John, was a statement I made at the end, which is there.
Well, it tells you what the plan is doing, right? See, that's not a vision statement, but that's a explanation of the vision statement.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Well,
in a
that's
sense, it seemed to me at the time it was a place we needed to go, because I think, in part, the function of a master plan is to understand what that function is as important as anything else.
There are other things. The master plan has to be widely disseminated within the community to be effective. It has to be widely participated in to be
Right.
effective.
Yeah.
I mean, the plans that I did 30 and 40 years ago, because they were done only to qualify for federal funds, really were the classic plans that didn't go anywhere. The plan that I was recently involved with is a iterative process, because so many people were involved, and they bought into it, and they feel that they own it. And so, if we, the most important thing I feel about updating a master plan is to get as many people involved as possible, to find out and get this kind of commitment from people that it's their document, not the planning board's document. And that way, you can have these things that really can have teeth. Otherwise, they don't. So that's my 2 cents on what a master plan ought to be.
The one I was involved in Sonoma County had a committee. There was a county planning board, and they were somewhat interested, but a committee was formed, and it was sort of serviced by the staff. Of course, they had a
Right.
huge staff. It's 250,000 people in that county.
Yeah.
And I would guess the general plan committee probably had 15 or so, and there was a separate transportation plan committee just for the transportation element.
Yeah.
So there are actually 30 people of all shapes and sizes.
I think that what, in days gone by, when federal and state governments were integral partners in the helping cities and towns grow or not grow, it was important to, or it was okay to exclude people. But in order to be effective today, and most of the resources that is going to be available to us are our own resources. I mean, they're really what flows from the town and, you know, a little bit extra here and there. So the extent to which you can go overboard is the end. So let me just give you just a small idea. And I realize this completely, you can't compare the two. So in San Jose, the chair of the Master Plan Study Committee was an existing city council member. The vice chair was a past city council member. There were 26 members of the committee, and at least 11 were elected officials at the county level.
We were just the opposite, Sonoma County.
Yeah.
We had one or two out of the
Right.
30 I
But it's,
mentioned.
things have evolved, you know, and they don't get money from the state. They don't get a lot. They don't get almost no money from the feds. The staff was there from the planning department, but this committee met and they had people come in from the private sector, from the public sector, from all over for this period of 3 years, and finally they come up with a plan. But it has teeth because everybody believes in it. So that's my sense.
Well, one of the things I would point to is that this master plan that we've just looked at, the three of us, and talking about tonight, came before the whole affair of the village at Little River, which revealed, I think, something very important, that the master plan hadn't seemed to turn up in terms of its questionnaire. I can't remember how many questionnaires went out and came back prior to, do you remember, Martha?
For the master plan or
Yeah.
for, I know the return was quite high, but I can't
Yeah.
give you numbers.
I have a vague sense that like 800 went out and 600 or something
Well, that's
came back.
extraordinary.
I think quite, yeah. But the inference was, in many ways, that although the town clearly wanted to sort of retain its semi-rural character, blah, 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 the need for and the need to manage development was clear. And yet, when it came to the moment, the structure of both local and state law brought us down because we required a clear two-thirds majority to change the zoning. And it turned out that there were a significant enough number of people here who did not want the kind of development that they felt that the village at Little River represented. And so in many ways, that came, I think, as quite a surprise in relation to parts of the master plan, which seemed to be talking in quite a different tone.
Well, maybe one last, anybody else want to comment on this?
I've got the
And
numbers
then-
here. They sent the survey out to every household in Newbury. It was over 2,400 homes.
Oh, wow.
And the response, they got over 500 surveys back, which
Yeah,
is
that
a
sounds
little
about right.
over,
25%.
you know, it's a
That's
little
about
over.
right.
That's not bad.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
So just one other, do you want to add anything on any of this? The thing that I have looked at in terms of land use planning and zoning in the last couple of years is that increasingly, as towns and cities are in financial duress, that the planning process, whether it be a master planning process or not, seems to get involved with looking at the financial implications of land use. decisions that are made
Yeah.
for the town. Because the town, these cities and towns are in such difficult financial straits, is that oftentimes, normally you have an environmental impact report. Many cities have financial impact report. And if you do this kind of a project, we haven't seen any of those here, at least since I've been here.
The
But
Little River one did
let's
one.
take Little River.
Yes. they
That
did.
would have had from what I understand of it,
Yeah.
an exceedingly positive financial impact on this town. And if it had been part of the review procedures, it seems to me that could have been, who knows?
Well,
might-
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should have carried the day because, but I think that the timing was wrong. That was 2007, 2008?
Yeah.
Well, the vote, yeah.
So
Right.
you weren't in the financial straits that happened since then, in terms of,
We were headed
Funding.
there, but
but no
we
one
didn't
saw,
quite know
what,
we
the
did.
door hadn't shut
I-
yet. So anyway, it's just an observation, and I don't see most cities and towns getting back to that. Now, that's a very short-term kind of analysis that I mean, it's not a 30-year master plan strategy to make, but it is a 5 to 10 year to start to look at. And it's one of the things that I think we might want to have discussions about.
Discussions with other
Our-
boards.
Ourselves and the other boards, and if we meet with the FinCom and the selectmen,
But this usually comes back to your teeth of the master plan. If you get the Board of Selectmen on board,
Right.
the Finance Committee on board,
right,
it
it
helps.
helps, it helps. So, do we want to then go through the details, or do you want to, John, do you want to add anything on this?
No,
subject?
I'm just going back, we're both going back to California, our experiences
Yeah.
there. It's so much easier in this town. I mean, there's unheard of I was the chair of the Transportation Committee and the vice chair of the General Plan Committee, and I'd never had a conversation with a county supervisor, ever. We were so far removed from it,
Yeah.
whereas we could just call up a selectman.
Oh, yeah,
It's so different. When we did the master plan here before, there was a committee, much different board of selectmen, and much different relationships between the selectmen and the planning board. I mean, ours has not always been perfect, but you should have seen it 30-odd years ago. It was out and out warfare. And I think a committee really that represents a lot of different interests would be very useful. It will lead to a lot of arguments, but by the same token, it'll put things, I think, in a perspective that is going to be more palatable to more people.
a committee, a widely diverse committee that has the appropriate interests in the town with a seasoned facilitator.
That's key. That is key.
Yeah, that is key.
Is
And
key.
it's
And it doesn't
probably
have to be
not
a
an
planning
elected chairman.
consultant. It's a seasoned facilitator.
Yeah.
With people like Martha who have a lot of it. I mean, we may not need I don't know if we need a planning consultant, but a seasoned facilitator who does this for a living.
Well, I would think that facilitator should be a professional planner. That seems to make
There've
sense.
got to be some people out there
Yeah.
who
You can't be
would do
just,
both.
you can't be a marriage counselor, you know?
Well, it depends what process you're talking about, seems to me. If you're talking about the process of bringing in the community, into a diverse group and somehow keeping them engaged, there's going to be fall off and all the rest of it. But when I started being involved with this plans process, it was beginning to kind of, what shall I say, your people were kind of running out of energy a little bit. And so what happened was, I think the first couple of times I went, there was the planning board plus 5 or 6 people. And then it really got down towards the end, and by that time I was on the board, that was really down to the planning board plus 2 or 3 people. And they were, you know, sort of dedicated regulars, as it were. You know, people like Marlene, for example, who has an interest in the natural world particularly. But it would seem to me that, you know, I reported briefly to you, a couple of weeks ago about going to the Newburyport
Right.
one that's going on. I haven't been back because I think their next meeting is in next week. They're doing it a little differently, but what they've done is very visibly involved people who are already leaders in the community. I mean, as I said, the mayor was there, the planner was there, other people from other groups were there. And I think in the early process, what you really have to do is establish people's confidence that the process is indeed a community-based process and not something with an agenda.
I think that's key. I think there's a misunderstanding in the town of Newbury of what is the master plan used for. I think a lot of people think it just sits on the shelf. They don't understand it's supposed to be a tool for like a roadmap to where we want to go in the future. I don't think everybody gets that.
Right, right, I think you're right.
Well, I think when we looked at it, it was, I think, and John can correct me, a surprise to John as to how much of the stuff that was in it had actually come to pass.
I was very surprised.
Same here.
And it's really impressive. Not only has it been accomplished, but there's a lot still being worked on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's impressive.
No, but majority of that is been accomplished though through the planning board, hasn't it?
Yes.
Not through other committees or
Well-
boards.
This, all right,
Yeah.
let's go through. Can we do that?
Sure.
And let's set a target that we need to be done in an hour. Mm-hmm. Okay, no matter what?
Okay,
Sounds
Done
good.
Done.
the whole damn thing?
No, we're just not gonna move
Just-
past an hour.
Oh.
We're not gonna
We're
move past.
an
Oh,
hour.
okay.
right.
Because we don't have to have this done tonight.
Yeah, we're
Right.
not gonna be done this in 3
Okay.
meetings.
No, but 10 minutes is not.
Do you want the lights on? I didn't know whether the, Steve, should I shut the light off the TV?
It's fine like that.
It is fine? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go to page 4, just look at it. And it's compile a,
Well, we probably should just refresh people to know that anything in red is new, additional. Anything in blue is continuing, and anything that is in black is questionable in terms of, you know, in a couple of places I may have extended the blue, so.
Could you start on page 2, please?
Oh, on page 2, of
Yes,
course.
just because it has the heading of the section
Yeah,
we're doing.
okay, yeah, it does, right? Yeah,
Thank you.
there you go. So the green highlight, when we get to it, is done and accomplished. The blue text is the goal carried forward. The white strategy numbers with pink highlights, I apologize for the coloring, but that's what reads better, is a goal with an ongoing activity. And then the red text is a new goal or a new agent, meaning the person involved, or the group involved, or the responsible party. Okay? And what we have is a series of, I forget now, 6 different sections, and the first one is natural resources, goals and strategies, and what you've got in bold is what the overall goals are for this section, and that's the format that follows all the way through this. And so when we move to specifics, you will see that you've got numbers which correspond to those overall goals. So how are we going to do this? Comments from people as to
Well,
whether
can you
they...
stop? Can you go back to the next page?
to the prior page?
Yeah, so right there where you have the list of goals right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
That was from,
So I'm just curious, I don't like the priority of these.
no, but that's existing.
I know, are we going to, how are we doing this right
Oh.
now? Are we going to just go through it and later on we're
No,
going to
no, any
reformat
comment,
it?
no, we
Or-
don't know what we're gonna do yet because we don't know the
I
process.
think just
we're gonna
plain
get going.
comments at this
Just
stage.
comments.
So, well, probably because of just my experience, but when you talk about public water supply, I think that trumps scenic landscapes. Maybe it doesn't because of our mission statement, but now you're talking public health first.
I would agree.
I think one thing to keep in mind, though, is that this came out of the survey results and many public meetings and that kind of thing, so,
That's how it got prioritized.
so I think that's how it got prioritized.
And, okay.
So do you understand where my comment was?
Yeah,
Yes,
but we're,
sure.
yeah, absolutely, we're acting
Alright.
as a staff, if you will.
Right.
And we're saying, based on our discussions of the last 3 to 5, however many years, that we, Kathleen is saying, she thinks preserve and protect the town's municipal water supply might be more important.
I'm not saying the other one is insignificant, I just think the order is off, that's all.
Well, that could be reshuffled after we've gotten our thoughts more or less in line. The
Yeah.
next step could be to reshuffle the priorities. I would agree the water supply is more important than
But
scenic.
let's not do that right now. Let's just go through and see what we
Yeah.
think of the goals and objectives.
Yeah, I wouldn't try it now. I think we need to just
Right,
comment,
okay.
comment,
Okay.
comment.
All right, so let's then go to page 3.
Yeah.
And really just open it up to anybody who wants to comment on anything that's on this
Yeah,
page.
I got a question on the two blues on 1.1, 1.2. What are indeed we doing? This implies it's ongoing. What is happening on that now?
It's not ongoing, it's that we're recommending that it be brought forward. The blue.
The
If it's
blue.
ongoing, it's got a.
It's
uh,
like 2-2.
The-
It's
the
pink.
pink
on your
highlight
card.
is-
Oh,
that
okay, all
See what I
right.
mean? Sorry, it's very.
I got it. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I
Got
understand.
it,
So we agreed that nothing has happened,
Right,
particularly
right.
on this?
right.
Up on the screen, anything that has a square around the number, where my cursor is right now, that's
Okay.
ongoing.
That's ongoing.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
right.
All right.
Okay.
Okay,
So
My bad.
So do we want to go through and just have a comment on each one of these? Why don't we bring up this issue about number 1.3, because that's a new one that we're suggesting might make sense. Support implementation of scenic byway management plan.
what is a byway management plan?
Well, this was my suggestion to put it on here, because we did, oh God, I don't remember, 5 years ago or so, working with the Essex
Essex.
Natural Heritage, National Heritage, of scenic management plan. Scenic
Yeah.
Byway Management Plan was developed for 133 1A up into Newburyport and actually over
Okay.
to Plum Island. And so,
Is that on the website at this point?
If you Google it, it actually comes up.
It would,
Yeah.
okay.
certainly on Essex
Yeah.
Heritage's
Essex
website.
Heritage,
They really promoted it.
Essex National Heritage, yeah. It's-
okay.
It's this
And I
right
think it's
here.
called the Coastal,
Oh, there,
Essex
okay,
Coastal
Right.
Scenic Byway.
all right.
And this
And-
ties into other things later.
So is the point that we just incorporate that route, or do we have our own management plan?
We don't have our own management plan, I mean,
But is that what
there
you're
are
suggesting?
guidelines. So the suggestion would be to, and it's voluntary for each town, the degree to which they want to participate in it, but the suggestion would be to, support the goals and objectives of the management plan and
So basically evaluate their plan and see what we'd want to incorporate into our plan?
in a sense. I mean, not necessarily evaluate it, but look at it in terms of what might make sense for us to implement it as a whole,
Does this involve funding at any point in time?
No.
funding that we would need to provide or funding that we
Anybody.
could get.
Or funding from other sources, or, if it's a scenic, I'm trying to, there's such a thing as just saying, well, it's a nice looking road, and let's support its preservation.
It's preservation, but there was also discussion about signage along it, doing pullouts if there are scenic views that people might be able to participate, enjoy.
Well, don't we need to point out that 1A, as it runs from Newburyport to Essex, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, is in fact the Essex National Heritage sort of principal scenic byway.
No, that's what
right?
the whole corridor.
That's where the
management-
whole thing comes from. I think
I
a
thought
lot of
it's a
people.
state highway, though, but a scenic highway,
Oh,
too,
yeah,
though.
but wait. I don't think people realize, it's amazing in a way, that we have in this county one of the very few National Heritage designated programs in the US of A. Okay? So we have money coming into this county from the federal government in the past and continuing to, in fact, promote programs and initiatives and whatever other words you want to use in this whole area. And that enables us to tap into expertise and knowledge that we don't have to pay for.
But getting back to his funding, I actually was on that subcommittee from, Martha, what was it called? The subcommittee for the
Well, you were part of Newbury's.
Newbury. And I got involved because I wanted to see if there was funding for repairing the sidewalks along High Road, to see if they could like do something like they do from Newburyport and continue it down to the Parker River. And from what I found out, there was no funding available for such projects. So getting back to that, as far as projects there are, but as far as
My
those-
question on this is, I mean, I think it probably makes sense. The question is really, what is it? I don't know what it does. I mean, is it something that you lobby to have signs established every 2 miles? Like you're now in the Essex County, what's it called? The Essex?
Essex
Scenic.
National, the Essex National Heritage Area is the
Right,
area.
and,
they have a sign standard, which is they have brown signs,
and I've seen them.
they have a logo, okay, and they're in particular places. And for example, Old Town Hill that I'm involved with is one of the sites that they recognize, and you know, et cetera.
Well, it sounds like none of us, David knows most of it. I don't know that much about it. I think it has some merit and probably ought to be pursued and flushed out. That's my taking of this. I don't know.
And I think in terms, and it probably benefits Newburyport more than us, but we've talked about, tourism.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
kind of thing, and all,
Well, we have somewhere in economic development, a new proposal
For 1A.
for 1A
Yeah.
to work on for tourism
Right,
and the
so
like.
that's
and so
why
it could all,
I'm
it
mentioning
could all
this,
tie
you know.
tie
So
into
it could
that.
tie it in. So obviously, we should keep something here and as a major goal.
And this is something that didn't exist when the first master plan was done, so.
Right.
I think it's important to recognize its existence and take a look at it.
So-
But it's not so much acknowledging that it exists, it's more how we incorporate
Yeah.
some of
Right,
that
but
stuff
nobody's,
into our
right, but
management
nobody's
plan,
really
correct?
nobody's really paid any attention to the fact that it does exist, so,
Yeah.
I think it's a matter of sort of refamiliarizing ourselves or familiarizing ourselves with it, and
So that could actually affect if we rezone 1A, you're saying, because you're saying potentially regulations for signage and things like that?
well, there's a standard for signage, if a community chooses to put them in.
Commercial
To-
signage.
No, it's not.
Signage for
For the
designation.
For the
Okay.
byway itself.
Yeah.
So if you've got people who are excited about traveling the byway and they come up here and we say we get this overlay district in, this could be a destination for them. Right now, it's a pass-through, except for Spencer Pierce Little and
No,
Old
but Plum
Town Hill
Island's
and
on
things
there,
like that. And Plum Island is on
because
there.
I remember arguing
Right.
with them, because they weren't gonna put Plum Island on there, and I was like, how could you not?
Right,
Yeah.
okay. 2.1 is,
Drinking water.
again, protect and conserve drinking water within the Parker River watershed. And the only thing that we've added here is work with the Parker River, what is it, CW
Clean
Watershed
Water.
Association.
Clean Water Association.
I didn't
and the state.
understand 2.4. Is this like, right now, we currently don't identify like Circles Finish as a hazardous waste site? That type of map and inventory? Or just, I'm not quite sure if I understand this one.
That, apparently when this was done, commercial was not included, fuel storage tanks, and yet they are important things to identify in terms of potential toxicity to water supply.
So it's
So
just,
we've just added the commercial underground tanks to the fact that residential, many of them are underground.
well, I think you should add in hazardous waste sites, if we actually have one in town.
Okay?
It's not a
we
hazardous,
talk
it's not a
about that?
hazardous, it's a contaminated site, let's
So
put it
this
that
is
way.
contaminated.
Contaminated site,
Right.
This is very
Yeah.
specific.
yes.
So you're suggesting we add contaminated sites?
We should have a list of contaminated sites in Newbury. I don't think we actually do right now.
I'm not aware of one.
Well, probably
Doug might have one.
common knowledge by most people, probably has a sense for where there might be. I mean, obviously, old gas stations, any kind of working commercial establishments.
You'd
Most
be
people would know
surprised
that.
though, after I've been talking to people, people aren't aware of certain things.
No, I'm trying to say, but some people, like John, Doug, and others who know,
They know.
there was a gas station there,
Yeah.
There never were many, picked the wrong kind of business, because we never had many gas stations.
No, I'm gonna say, actually, we've had such a minimal industrial base.
Right.
That,
That's my take.
the places where there might be things we probably know of already. But the interesting thing is, there hasn't been a push, in part because the monies that have gone to brownfield kind of work at the regional level, the only site that we have is the metals site, which is partly in
Right.
Newburyport.
And they're starting on that now, this
Right, they're working on that
equipment
now.
there, yeah.
Yeah, but that, I mean, that just took years.
We have an old dump that not many people are aware of.
Right, yeah, with a cap, and we, thank goodness, have not had the problem.
We've got one that doesn't have a
We have another
cap.
one. We have another one.
Another one?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
You're talking about the one across the tracks, yeah.
Oh, right.
Nobody knows about that.
Yeah,
But-
right.
But just going back up to 2.2 for a second, I mean,
Okay.
I think that developing new drinking water supply based on Kathleen's work is one of the highest priorities that we could be working on down there. And, we haven't done anything in the last 6 or 7 months on it, but I still think that that's a very high priority. And I'm surprised you didn't mention it.
I was waiting for somebody else to. The other
Okay.
thing that we don't have a list of, which most people would be surprised of, is we don't know actually which residents in town are on a public water supply and which are not on public water supply.
Right. Right. We have a map, right? You got a map from Byfield, did you?
Byfield has a map, a
Right.
hard copy. Newburyport has, you have to go through actually their bills to generate that.
Yeah, right.
So both
Oh.
of them actually should go through bill. I would recommend if someone establishes that, they go through the bills and not look so much on the map, because I don't know how often that's revised.
Are you talking about both sides of the equation, both water and sewer?
Well, I would assume that Plum Island has all houses of water and sewer. I wouldn't think
Right.
that anybody is not on there.
But that's the only place that is water and
Yeah.
sewer, isn't it?
Right.
No, up
There
in the
are-
park, there's some sewer.
Up here.
Up here,
Yeah,
yeah.
there is
And
some-
Rolfs Lane, parts of Rolfs
There
Lane.
are a handful of
because what's his
places
name,
that are both.
Pardon?
The DePiro's project is
Montgomery
got.
Yeah, that was on sewer, but the lower part of, from there down are
Got it.
on sewer.
Got it.
This,
And
go ahead.
No, I'm
Sorry.
supposed to say, a good part of Montgomery Park is sewer.
This actually gets into something deeper that I don't want to get too involved in tonight, is how we do have water main going down High Road, and the condition of that main is poor and under capacity, and we have people in need right now that need to connect to it. However, in order for them to do that, they'd have to pay themselves, is what I've been heard, to upgrade the main along High Road. So just not knowing, who's connected to water, I don't know how anybody could make that decision right now. It's just, we don't know as a community who's hooked up.
Yeah.
So you discovered that Newburyport Water and Sewer Departments do not keep separate records for our community.
No, they have their, as far as what type of records? They have the MyMap.
Yeah,
However, if you want an accurate idea of who's connected in town, they would print off the invoices of their bills.
so my map isn't sufficient for that?
I wouldn't trust MyMap with that. And I believe, I don't know who I talked to, this over a year ago, that's
Yeah.
what they recommended I did.
Uh-huh.
Because that was one of the things when I was trying to look at in our town, where it was
Right.
connected, once we got it, I realized it wasn't, they show the main, the My Map shows the main, it doesn't show the connections.
Right.
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 So that's why you need the invoices to figure out which house is connected. All you know is where it runs down the street.
So as a work item, do you think it's an appropriate work item to say that the town should develop a detailed map of everyone who's connected to water?
And
Is that
sewer.
Is that worthwhile?
Yes.
Everybody agrees
Yeah.
that's worthwhile? Let's-
Yeah.
Yeah,
So let's add that.
right.
But like John said, there's sewer, we should know who's also connected to the sewer lines.
Yeah, no, we're gonna do both. That's a subset of 2.2.
Or does that become actually a new item, maybe?
I think,
Maybe.
I think
You
it's
know
Two
what,
five.
Maybe, let's not worry about
Right,
it.
no, and I can't do it on this
No.
because it's a PDF anyway.
Let's go to page 4,
Okay.
3.1. Maybe we can make some stronger progress here.
Right.
You telling me not to talk?
So on 3.1, John, we've added the stormwater committee.
Yeah, that would be appropriate of the first two.
Right.
The third one is really Board of Health, although we definitely have an interest in that because all of our receiving bodies are impaired, and they're impaired with pathogens, which in all probability come from septic systems. So we're clearly, that's an initiative we're gonna be, a tree which we're gonna be barking up shortly.
On 3.3,
Yeah.
so why don't we put
Yeah.
stormwater? 'cause
Well, you don't
the-
have to, we're working with the Board of Health.
You are?
They're-
Well, I would
They're
say-
gonna be, I just as soon let them be the lead on this, because it's their business.
3.4, what we're saying here is that we have, this is what, our first one that we've said has been accomplished, obviously, recycling at the transfer station. And then on 3.5, that we adopted the town stormwater management bylaw.
Do we have these now?
What?
Do we have special days at the dump for hazardous materials?
No.
No, we
don't.
had-
In fact, I just asked that question.
No, I'm sorry,
No, at the dump.
Oh, at
And I
the
was
dump,
told- And
oh.
I was told, no, they're thinking about it.
Yeah, we had one last year at the elementary school, and I think they're planning to do another one in the fall, maybe.
That was done by Clean Waters?
I was told that they were supposed to have one in January.
Who's
and
they?
The
The
town.
The
We-
town or
we-
waste management or
Waste
whatever?
management, waste management
Okay.
was supposed to have one in January, and because of the weather, it was called off. And so, maybe there's gonna be one in June or July, that was, but he didn't know, this is the guy at the transfer station. Because I have all this stuff I wanna get rid of, just sitting there.
I think Newbury really needs to step up though on the education of, especially in people in Old Town that have well water and septic systems, of what they're dumping down into their toilets and things like that, and how it goes
Absolutely.
right into the groundwater. Because I am
Absolutely
just
right.
surprised at what people are doing.
Really?
Such a disconnect. If you flush it down the toilet, they just think it goes somewhere
Yeah.
far away.
Yeah,
off into the ether somewhere.
yeah. Well, okay. This is, 4.1 is revise and refile the current local open space plan, and both Martha and David know much more about this than I, but it's my understanding that it's gone through difficult times.
Yes.
So I think that probably is a high priority. I also think that, wasn't it, David, that when Tracy spoke about updating the master plan, she also talked about including this as part of that
I
process?
suggested it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was, the item on the warrant included funding for both updates.
Well, they run in tandem, I mean, they really do.
Yeah, there's so much overlap between
Yeah,
the two.
And then also we have Adopt Community Preservation Act, and of course, that's on the town warrant, so we'll see if that passes. It would be nice if it would. Page 5, beginning with 4.5. Again, we're still on natural resources. 4.6, 4.7, and 4.8 are being worked on.
One thing we had suggested when we went through this last time is if everybody could look at who is the responsible body for implementing these things, and also the priorities, whether these are correct in terms of medium, high, or low. Is there any comments on that for any of these items?
I'd kind of like to see a wetlands bylaw that speaks to something besides Plum Island. We have one, but it's virtually all Plum Island, and it was done in response to the state.
Wetlands bylaw?
Wetlands bylaw, yeah.
For, town-wide, you mean?
I'd make it townwide, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think this brings up, I know, a touchy subject, but hey, I'm a specialist in those.
Yes, you are.
Yes, and that is that our Conservation Commission is overwhelmed by other considerations, and so doesn't tend to ever get into any of these kinds of issues.
I would say that is a problem that couldn't be solved. I don't really feel overwhelmed as a Concom member. What issues are you thinking of?
Well, I'm thinking that if you look at some of this stuff, okay, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, okay, and other things that are on here too, each time you look at the responsibility column, it says Conservation Commission, okay? Now, the Conservation Commission, to my knowledge, has not been pressing for a town-wide wetlands bylaw.
No, it just occurred to me when I was reading this again this afternoon.
Yeah,
And I
right.
went and looked to be sure that what I said was correct, that it is.
Okay,
on the line.
now, I think in terms of working with individual property owners who come before them needing, an adjudication of some sort, they do probably some of the things which you find here, which are described as protection of wetland buffer areas, et cetera, preserve natural stream courses.
So all the more reason, we need a process and have at least one, maybe two members of the Concom
Right.
on the phone.
Yeah,
Well, bear in mind that a number of these things are part of the Wetlands Act in the first place.
mm-hmm,
I mean, protection of vernal pools is not something that we haven't done yet. Vernal pools are a very important
Right.
protected resource, and it just sort of happens.
So that's the kind of conversation we need to have with everybody around, and someone says, well, we've done that.
Isn't there already a
except we
list
haven't
of
done that.
vernal pools in town?
I believe there is. I believe there's I don't think we put it together, but there is,
I
yeah.
thought Marlene
Yeah,
was
there is-
talking
there
about
is.
one.
Yeah.
Maybe the Comcom didn't put together a list of vernal pools, but maybe the Parker River done that in town?
Well, okay, there are a number of agencies that have looked at it, but what happens is there's a difference between a vernal pool that's registered, it's part
Right,
of the
that's it.
state
Right,
level
certified.
inventory.
Okay.
I mean, there's a huge one potential at the back of my house, which is partly on state land and partly on private land. It's probably, if it still is functioning, and there are some issues about stuff that may come off Pearson Drive, it's probably one of the biggest in the community, but it's not registered. We don't have a group in town who are committed to, doing that
So
kind of thing.
you need somebody to take interest in this.
Right. We have a number of private individuals and people very much associated with Parker River Clean Water, a professor from UNH and a school teacher and so on, have been doing a lot of private work, but it's not at the community level. And that's, that's the kind of, that's why what John said is very true. What we need is people who are stakeholders for those kinds of interests. And the sad fact is that, there's only one Marlene, and you can only cut her up into so many pieces.
Do we want to just,
Yeah.
a floodplain map, so there's not much to add on that. Agricultural, everybody knows what we've done there, or what the town has done, local
Well,
agriculture.
I wanted to
commission.
ask about 5.3. Should that even be on there anymore?
Well, that's one that we don't have.
That's why it's black.
That's why it's in black.
Yeah, that's why it's not,
And one of the
So
reasons is.
everybody agrees, I agree that should be
Yeah,
removed.
we all believe
Yeah.
that should be
Yeah.
removed. Okay?
yeah.
And then right to farm. David, would you explain this qualify for green community status?
Where am I?
What number?
6-3.
Oh, 6-3. That's Martha.
Is it Martha, would you qualify?
I actually did not put that in there, but
I thought you did.
I don't think so, but,
Notice how I.
Well, okay, all right, I'll take it off her shoulders. Very quickly, the Green Communities is a program the
Right.
state has, okay? And essentially, you have to do a number of very specific things. And if you qualify as a green community, you then become eligible for certain kinds of state grants. And a number of communities around here, including, I think Newburyport is one, right?
I think
Yes?
so. I think Amesbury has
Amesbury.
qualified.
Yeah, and I know that Amesbury got somewhere, I think in the order of something over $100,000 as a result, basically planning monies, community aid monies.
It's absolutely
Yeah.
worth it to pursue
Yeah.
it, because
Yeah.
loads of people like it, and,
So what's it take?
people
in a
like to be
couple
part of a
sentences?
green
Well,
community.
you have to, I can't remember all the criteria. One
Yeah.
is to, any vehicles that you purchase have to be energy efficient,
Yeah.
like
Any
hybrid
buildings you
vehicles.
build,
Yeah,
You have to, at the time, and I don't know if this is still relevant, you had to adopt the stretch code, the stretch
Okay, now
energy
this is
code.
the town government. We're not making people
Yeah,
buy cars.
yeah, you're
that-
right, you're
Right,
correct.
right.
It's just,
Yes.
For
it's just our own
municipal- I'm
equipment.
sorry,
Yes.
municipal.
There you go, okay.
Yes. You had to allow, alternative energy by right,
Okay.
and I can't, there were two others, and I can't remember what they
Yeah,
were. Do you
yeah.
know,
so it's
David?
worth doing,
It sure sounds good, yeah.
yeah.
I think at the time when this first came out, it was deemed that it would be difficult for us to meet those criteria, but that was a number of years ago, so it may have
Well,
changed.
it may
It's
still
probably
be
worth,
difficult, but it may be a goal worth pursuing.
you know,
Well, knowing that we have to, at least in the near future, build a new police station, would that right there kill it because of the cost associated with doing a green building?
It doesn't have to be necessarily a green building.
Because that's quite expensive, isn't it, the difference
Well,
between?
it
Well,
don't- no.
it's.
Not necessarily.
It helps you out in your operating costs, so it's not as expensive as some would make you believe.
Many
Really?
Long range,
developers are
full
building.
cycle, life cycle.
Right, many developers are building according to various, what is it, all of a sudden, the gold standard.
LEED.
The LEED.
screens and-
The leads.
Lead.
right.
Because it makes financial sense in the long run.
Well, that's
I mean,
good then, so.
Yeah, I mean, if you own something, it doesn't make sense for a condominium developer or a single-family house developer and stuff like that, but office developers and apartment developers,
Yeah.
LEED.
Those
They
who
wanna
build
do
for their
LEED
own
certified.
accounts make out. If you're building to
Yeah.
pedal and flip,
Right.
it's not worth it.
A lot of institutions are also, a lot of the colleges.
Almost
are-
every college has
Yeah.
got
are
these.
Sure.
Being able to say that they have
Yeah.
LEED certified buildings.
Well, it's
They also have the money, though, to do that stuff.
Well, it's also part of their marketing.
Yeah.
Their students like to be part of a community that's got LEED and green certified structures. All right, 635, blazing progress. 71, which is educate Newbury residents and businesses and town's natural resources. Okay, so we've added, we talked about this last week.
Mm-hmm, right, yeah, number 7-5 at the bottom.
5 is the new one, and we
Yeah.
talked about that.
Right,
Oh, by the way, just seeing that, and I don't want to get too far off, but John, you went to the storm surge last time?
Yes.
Was that worthwhile? I mean,
It was, yeah. There's a certain sameness to
Yeah,
the,
right.
but the reason I wanted to go was because of the lady that was speaking, who is the CEO of Bioengineering something or other in Salem. And they are a medium-sized firm that deals with, among other things, sea level rise issues. And that got my attention because, as you know, I am not a fan at all of hiring a large firm to deal with. This is a case where we clearly do need a consultant. I don't believe we want to start out getting a consultant. I think we ought to figure out what our problems are as best we can ourselves.
How does that tie back? How does
Huh?
that tie back to the presentation that you went to?
Okay, well, because she's a consultant and she's close, and she's a medium-sized firm, and she has terrific credentials. They've got 50 people. That's the good news. The bad news is they're spread over 4 offices. They've a branch in Atlanta, New Orleans, and San Diego.
What's her name?
Pardon?
What's their name?
Her name is, oh Christ.
No,
It's
the fir-
Goldsmith. The
The firm
firm is Bioengineering something.
Right, it's on the storm surge.
Oh, Bioengineering Group.
Right.
And I got her card. I have not gotten any information from her. I'd asked her to send some stuff on, and she obviously forgot by the time she got back to the office.
And I haven't, David, you were gonna contact Dennis, or?
Oh,
was it just
okay.
that Dennis is waiting to see what the state's gonna do?
Well, 2 things are true. One is that at the time you asked me that, there are still things going on at the state level. The other thing which is true is that the longest-serving employee at the commission is about to retire, actually, tomorrow, Friday. And he is the head of the environmental program, and he is the person I asked. And so he directed me, understandably, to Peter Phippen, who is somebody he works with in his office, and so we can talk to Peter about that, because he is the coordinator of 8 Towns in the Bay. He's also involved in this kind of programming, involved with the state. And, like all of those kinds of initiatives, there's nothing that's, as I understand it anyway, that really is currently sort of focused where you could essentially go with your list of questions and talk to, quote unquote, the expert. It's still much,
But they don't have any thoughts or intentions at this point in time of pulling a group of towns together to talk about this issue.
I think that's already happening, but it's happening, okay. It's happening on, I don't know enough about this in all honesty, but as I understand it, it's happening on like 3 levels, at least 3. The level which the commission has been more involved in the person of Peter Phippen is what I would call the sort of biological domain, and that is the whole issue of what's going to happen to the Great Marsh, right? And what so much, not so much what can we do about it, but how do we react to what is going to happen? And how do we do that in a way that isn't fragmented, but is in fact coherent as a coastline? Then there's the whole issue which we deal with here on Plum Island, and that is the threat to infrastructure and all of those things. But that moves to a different group of people. And if you remember, and that didn't sort of go anywhere at the time, we might get back to it, I had made contact with the environmental planner for Portsmouth, and that's, I think, their sort of what they've been doing, and that ties into what Hull is doing to encourage people to, put all their houses on stilts, on piles. And then the third thing, I think, is when you get into this kind of multi-agency mashup, which is what's happened with Plum Island and the issue of the jetties, which involves, every government agency you could line up. And at that point, coherence, it ain't, just isn't the name of the game. Which is why I think it would be very useful, actually, to talk to the guy who is behind Storm Surge. because
That was a woman. It's a guy?
it's Jen
The
Wright's
woman
husband.
was one of their many, many
Yeah,
speakers,
yeah.
but Mike, what's her name's husband? the-
Yeah,
Mike
Jen
Morris.
Wright's
Yes,
husband.
Mike Morris seems
Mike
to be
Morris,
the
I-
leader at the moment, and I
Yeah.
think he would be an excellent guy to talk to.
I mean, he's not a self-educated person, but he's self-educated, it strikes me, in this area.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And he has acquired a very good ranging knowledge of sort of what's out there.
He knows
who's-
how the world works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and who's talking to whom.
He's good.
And the very people he's tapped. And the interesting thing is, I mean, Hells Bells, we're, 20 miles from one of the major colleges and universities
UNH.
doing work in this at UNH.
Yep.
So it's not that
Okay.
we lack for
All right.
contact.
So maybe we contact Mike Morris.
Mm-hmm.
Who
I
is?
think it would be really
I
good,
will.
I think, if we all push to
Just
get
assign
a
it, so.
interdisciplinary
Assign it
committee
to me.
going on this. Because this is not a planning board issue, this is an entire town
Well,
government issue.
and the question is, that's what I want to talk to Tracy about, is this a subset of the master plan? Is this a separate?
Something altogether separate, yeah.
Entirely different, and find out what her commitment would be to doing something on it. As you suggested, it's town-wide. So,
Yeah, Plum Island is not the only section of town that is
No.
closed.
No, no.
No, my
Yeah.
neighbors. They're right in
Yeah.
the marsh.
Parker River?
Yeah.
Yeah, your neighbors, all of Pine Island is isolated, good
Yep.
chunks of Orchard Street, not necessarily your area, but there are several parts. There's only, you can't get to Governor Dummer by Middle Road anymore. You know, it just goes
Right.
on and on.
Right,
yeah,
The
right.
bridge out by the dump, Four Rock Bridge, is gonna have to be replaced or rebuilt, and there may be some others that will have to be rebuilt. It's just a,
So I think maybe
goes on and on.
after town meeting, we need to just explore this, but in the meantime, maybe a conversation, well, after town meeting, conversation with Tracy and maybe a call to this guy, Mike Morris. Gotta figure out a way something to do, gotta do something.
It really should be started in the near future.
Yeah, I
It's
think
not
so.
the kind of a thing that has to be this month, but it should not be put off for a few years.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
this also ties into the fact that, we had this unfortunately somewhat screwed up, flawed process of looking at financing planning, in the sense of the master plan and other kinds of things, when the finance committee asked the question, and I think one of the things that doesn't get sort of thought about here is if we don't do something like this, and we can't find, any money to do it, then frankly, the cost to the community 10, 15, 20 years down the road is going to be just,
That's right.
unsustainable.
That's right.
And I don't think people, it's not a happy thought, but we've got to look at it.
The sad thing is, for this community, that may be true no matter what we do, because there are limits to the reasonable amount of adaptation that we can accomplish. You can't assess every household in town, let's say $25,000, $50,000, ain't gonna happen. And that may very well be the cost of some of the things that would have to be done.
That workshop you went to, did they throw out a number for sea rise?
sorry?
The workshop you went to, did they throw
Yeah.
out a number for sea rise?
No.
Nobody,
mean- no.
nobody will commit to a
No.
number.
Well,
You know
they,
that?
they threw out there's a reason for
In
that.
terms
and-
of the amount of, the
Yeah.
the
It's
fee?
very
They
simple
won't.
why they don't, and it's because they don't know. And anybody that tells you he knows is clearly somebody to be avoided.
That's right.
Because, he sees us coming. No, they don't know that.
But the reason why I asked is because that kind of gives you an idea of how many homes you may be affected by it or not. Like right now, because we don't know how many feet we're talking about,
Right.
we don't know how many homes are impacted other than Plum Island.
Absolutely.
That's all.
But we know some are for sure. And it seems to me we are going to know eventually. So we need to start doing two things.
What we know, John, is when the water's coming over the front step.
Exactly, my point exactly. So, no, but there will be a time, right now, it's pretty safe to say 2 feet. That's probably not a bad number.
Over what duration?
100 years.
Yeah,
Well, between
2100.
now, let's say between the end of the century.
2100.
yeah.
That's probably an at
That's probably,
least.
I think John's right.
In another 20 or 30 years, we may have a handle on what is happening to the two ice packs. You know, Greenland and the Antarctic West ice shelf. If they start to go, as Katie barred the door. You know, but the present thinking is that it's going to be centuries before they start to really, they are melting now at a hell of a rate, but before they really let go and bother us, it could be centuries. But the big mistake that has consistently been made by the scientists is not what's happening, but how soon it's happening.
Sure.
Because it's happening faster than
Yeah,
anybody
which
thought.
is what the latest reports,
Pardon me?
what the latest reports, which are now being, talked about, written about in
The
the
latest
press.
federal one that just came out,
Yeah,
yeah.
are
You know what?
saying, yeah,
Let's,
done.
let's move on.
enough.
And not that we could spend the whole night on this, and
Oh,
that's
yeah.
the reason why. Let's
Yes,
see if we
sure.
can get another section done.
Okay, let's move to, because natural resources is the largest and the
It
longest.
is the largest and it's the longest.
Kathleen, do you have any comments on our priority list?
Oh, for what? You mean on
For
cultural?
Cultural historic.
Oh. No, she doesn't.
Well,
He's
no,
joking. He's joking.
Okay.
All right. So first page, any comments on this? We have two accomplishments.
I think it'd be interesting to get input from the Historic Commission to see if they add any of the goals to this section.
Well, in particular, Martha, we have not heard much about the demolition delay bylaw.
No, not for,
Quite some time.
Some time.
It is interesting to note that Newburyport just passed one. And within a very short period of time, a new city council member who was just elected last fall
Yeah,
developed a bylaw for that and for the local historic district and got it passed. Unanimous vote.
interestingly, he is an attorney who specializes in.
In land use.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
All right, so we're doing good. Let's not stop.
No, so the question is, do we just wait for them to come to us, or?
No, no. Can't do that. Do you want it
You ask them.
accomplished? Do you want it?
Should we reach out to the Historic Commission and ask them?
Well, they met with the staff, right? Didn't they?
well, we did have, yeah,
You sort of had an encounter of some sort.
We did have
I sent
a-
a letter like 9 months ago.
Yeah. well,
right. We did have a
yeah.
meeting with them to go over the comments that, from the board
Right.
and from
Right.
Sam. Jeff Walker was there.
And they weren't happy.
And we haven't heard anything since.
So what did okay, so at the end of that meeting, did they commit to anything, to any action, to any timeline?
They,
Not
well,
that you
they
remember.
said it wasn't, certainly wasn't going to be ready for the spring. I think they may be hoping for the fall.
What
get
seems
it
to
on
be
the
their
warrant.
problem?
I think that, there's still questions about what the time frame is.
Oh, right, the cutoff date
Yeah, the
and-
cutoff date.
Yeah,
and
Jesus, I mean,
a few other things.
we'll have, by the time we get there, most of the houses that are questionable will be gone. Never mind.
Okay,
But I can certainly,
next page.
It would
Ask
be
them.
interesting
Right.
if you just reach out, see what the
yep, I'll
response
do
is.
that.
Yes.
I'll do that.
Right,
Why don't you do that, Martha?
Because if they're going to be at the fall meeting, that's not zoning, so they don't have to
They don't
post
have to go
things,
through the,
right?
they
So
don't have to go through the public hearing process.
And so we have this 4-1 in black because I think we've got that in another
Yeah.
location.
right. In a different
And then
location.
5-1 is an important thing to preserve the town's records because they have not been preserved consistently.
Right. And the CPA is one of the things, if we
Right.
could pass it, which would liberate some money to do that.
That's right. I didn't realize that.
Yep.
Going into housing, we did 1-1.
I don't like 1-3.
It's not,
It's in black, so
it's in black,
It's in black.
So it's
okay?
gone.
So it's probably, we're recommending that it be gone.
Yeah, that's the conversion.
She's
yeah,
right on these.
restrictions.
1-4, again, that's using CPA. Although that question that was asked when the CPA person was here, tells me you can't, I'm still not sure how you use the CPA for a housing rehab, but you can do it to build new housing, right?
Well, also you need to establish a separate entity
Yeah.
which can handle the funds.
Like some kind
Yeah,
of
a
nonprofit.
nonprofit.
Well, that's easy
you
enough
know,
to do.
Yeah,
So we should keep that.
right.
1.5, that's the special permit for the 3+ units.
Yeah,
Wow, 10 minutes to spare.
What do you mean?
Almost done.
No, we're not.
Almost.
There's still work to be done here. Any other comments on goal number 2, which is,
Being eliminated. Isn't that whole thing being eliminated?
oh, wait a minute.
2.2 was being eliminated. I
Yeah.
think 2.1, should that have been blue, because we added some
That should have
red
been in
to?
blue, because we added stuff, right?
2-1. Oh,
2.1 is the Little River area, isn't it?
yes, right.
We want that as a mixed-use development, so that's, the first part should be in blue. No?
Well, okay, you see the little thing in red?
Oh, but, yeah, you know what?
I thought we didn't want to include housing there.
Well, I think frankly that that whole area needs a fairly, good,
Makeover?
thorough discussion.
We don't know.
Because,
I think we're
we
just
really don't know.
keeping options open. If someone came in through the door and proposed, a 200-unit, mixed-unit project,
oh, oh, well, we'd be right back to where we were 6 years ago.
we'll see. But I think mixed use makes sense. You use that as it's a catch-all to allow you to do a mixed-use commercial, retail, and/or housing.
Oh,
That's all.
it's not zoned for that right now.
Well, you'd have
Is
to-
it?
No, but you have to, any project of that magnitude would need a special zone.
Yeah,
Would be,
Oh, because density.
Yeah. Way beyond what there's nothing in our code that allows us to do what they want to do.
yeah,
Again,
I did agree to put, I'm sorry, it was me. I agreed to put it in blue originally, and then I thought, well, it still is not, so we
Being done.
need to look at
Right,
it.
okay. Emphasize village development, we did that. Support any private proposal for elderly housing. Excuse me. Excuse,
It's so exciting.
excuse me. You're on television.
If anybody's watching.
Okay, where are we going now?
time
We're
to
down to 3, 4.
1, 3, 4.
Four,
Any
one.
comments on anything this page?
Right.
George is awfully quiet for a presumptive,
Right.
for a presumptive electee.
I will not call this individual out on TV, but I was at a gathering with an individual that is working on this section of the Newburyport master plan.
Oh,
A Newbury resident.
Yeah.
So I was gonna tap into her to see if maybe she might be interested.
As a consultant?
No, to look through our,
No, but is she working with Newburyport as a consultant, or is she
I'm not
just?
calling them, him or her out. I'm just saying.
Right.
I
Well,
just-
maybe she was like me, or he was like me, and somebody asked the other night how I got to go.
Well, you
to-
own property in Newburyport.
No, but the point is, they're public meetings.
That's right, you can
You
go.
can't, they can say, you can't play with our toys, but they can't stop you coming in the door.
All right. Encourage friendly 40Bs, identify town-owned properties suitable for affordable housing, and
Oh,
develop and
okay.
maintain proper planning capability. Okay, anybody have any issues with any of those things? Okay.
It's interesting how economic development is the last goal, which is one of the most important ones.
It's not
No,
actually
it's
last, there's
the
2
last-
more.
There's land use,
and
There's 2 more.
transportation.
There's 3 more.
yeah.
Capital
Yeah.
facilities, transportation, and,
Got 7 minutes.
Oh, I only
all
have
right,
to
don't worry
page
about it.
10. That's why. Mine only has to page 10.
well,
Oh, well,
do you have it on both sides?
Okay.
No.
Oh, so we're not, excuse me, I thought that we were finished. That's why you said we weren't finished.
That's
Okay.
why I said we were.
Right,
Okay.
yes. Okay, let's get back to it. Let's see if
All
we
right,
can wrap it.
let's go on to page 11, so we
Yeah.
can do economic development. Why should economic development be one page, and natural resources is like 10?
Well, we've talked about that.
Now, how is that?
How is that? Isn't that interesting? Yeah, well, that is simply because we live in the town we live in, which has all this water and clay
Yeah,
and
no, I
all
see.
those things and all this wildlife. And 40% of it is conserved for
And that's, people are passionate
people,
about it.
right, yeah. And
People
we
are passionate
still,
about their money though, too.
oh, sure.
Yeah,
Right,
so it seems
yeah.
to me that as we get into the economic development / financial, impact, I think that we need to see how this can be expanded a bit. That's all.
Well, I mean, it's interesting to hear that somebody's bought land with the idea of a storage facility, right?
Mhm.
It's kind of interesting, just enough, yeah, right.
Not a great deal of taxable property, but not bad. It's not the worst.
Okay,
Okay, so we've got all these things that we've done.
Right.
And then we've added the one, which we all agree is a good idea,
right, that's from number 1, ties back, yeah.
6. And then 2.1, that's kind of like, we have been doing that.
That was tried a few years ago. Didn't work out terribly well.
No, but I think that
What was done, John?
Well, in my opinion, the problem, well, not much was done. Nothing was accomplished, actually, that I can recall. But the focus was on the big score. Try to get, we're talking about hotels, for instance. You got a world-class hotel guy that's in the very next town. Towards the end, we started thinking about the little stuff, and then there was an election, and everything kind of stopped.
Yeah, I think having discussions with people about the little stuff is a good idea.
Oh, yeah. It's gotta be lots of little ones and not
That's-
one or two big
we're
ones.
not gonna-
We're not a one or two big one kind of town.
There's no reason, we have no competitive advantage for that at all.
Vince was the spark plug behind this, and when his term was up, his last term was up, the whole thing kind of died.
Well, I think we should do something on
But it's a very worthwhile thing to have, I think.
that. Anything else on this page? I'm on 11.
Don't think so.
Well, this is very interesting. I just like to tell you that you have 3 minutes to your cutoff time, like you suggested. But you can keep going, because I am enjoying this.
Well, now we're into
There.
I
transportation.
have been reading it. I was reading over your shoulder the minute I was like this.
All right. Any comments on anything on here? This page?
I would love to get a bike route in, Martha. It's not gonna happen though, is it?
You mean on the old rail trail?
That's going to happen.
I think it could happen.
Sooner or later.
It would be nice.
I think it could happen.
Yeah, it's gonna be a pretty weird trail though, isn't it? When you think
Sure, no,
about
Nice
it.
to get,
John, on traffic accidents, how many do we have in town? Does anyone know?
I think this is David, can you answer this better? Because I asked the same thing
Yeah.
when we reviewed this, and apparently this is one of these things that came from others, and.
Yeah, this is a standard thing that you sort of are expected to have as a goal in your transportation thing because, among other things, one of the largest providers of funds to local communities is the Department of Transportation,
Okay.
So
okay?
that's why we have it.
Yeah,
If we didn't have it, they'd say, well, where's your thing about reducing traffic accidents?
yeah, right.
Right, it's not a
Right.
secret.
And you can always do better is, I think, the mantra
So
there,
let's
which is
see,
not
in the 1
untrue.
minute that we have,
Okay,
Can we-
the last,
can we get to community facilities and goals?
yeah, here we go, here we go.
Establish a capital improvement, we did that, relocate, redevelop, now that has started, right? Have you, the new one?
We're actually having our first meeting tomorrow morning.
Oh, there you go, okay.
A new committee,
A new committee, right?
Yep.
And is Eric on that?
Yes.
same people as previous?
We have one new member, Richard Ronder, I think he is. believe he lives on Rolfs Lane, maybe?
That's nice.
Which committee is this?
Municipal Building Committee.
Building Committee.
Oh, okay, okay. Do we have that somewhere in our?
Yes.
Where?
1, 2, under goal 1, under community facilities.
Oh, okay.
All right,
Uh-huh, right.
and then the next page.
So we maybe need to include that committee.
Yeah,
Okay, land use gets treated a bit differently, but here we go.
all right. You know what?
You say it, I'm not gonna. I said time's up.
Time's up. Okay. We can do land use at another time.
Okay, yeah, because that's important,
All right?
I think.
And that's when we want to start talking
Brush it
about
off.
that type of thing. All right?
Okay.
Is that okay with everybody?
Sure.
Yes,
Do we
sir.
have the committee reports, the liaison reports?
We have new business first, right?
Well, we have new business, and we also, now that Linda's here, we can also do the minutes of April 16th.
Oh, okay.
Oh, right, yeah, uh-huh.
So, can I have a motion on the minutes from April 16th?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So approved. Thank you for that. Then Personnel Board updated town plan. Job description, you gonna just hand that out, or what are you gonna do?
Let's see, well, I emailed it,
I
so
saw it. Did everybody see it?
Yes.
I guess,
I reviewed it, but I figured Powell was gonna
what?
See what?
scrutinize
The
it.
job description.
Kind of was expecting you to.
Oh, you're so right, Kathleen. I was a bit confused about what's going on. And the confusion was that the rewrite seemed to be essentially just a recasting of the 2006 version, am I right?
That's exactly what they retyped it in, as they're trying to standardize the format for all of
Right.
these, and so they basically retyped the last one that they had on file into the new format.
So do they, okay, was there a reason for that? That's because it's the official sanctioned one?
That's the official one as of now, so that was kind of the starting point for anything moving forward.
Right, okay. So I guess my question to everybody else would be, what did you perceive the differences to be between the one that we currently have and the one that was redone 2 years later, but never accepted by the Personnel Committee, because I think the Personnel Committee fell apart at that point?
Well, you mean 2008?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, there was a planning director.
Well, the name terminology got a little screwy, but that was partly reflecting, actually, interestingly, some advice we got when the master plan got published. That was a better title than planner, and that's sort of, to me, immaterial.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to me, a planning director is somebody who actually
As a staff.
has staff and so on. Most of
Right.
us in communities our size are
Oh,
town
or
planners.
Yeah, town planners, right.
Well,
Right,
the only
think
new
it's-
items are under knowledge and skills, and it's the first 2 bullets, they're brand new. But they're sort of covered by the third one, which was the first one before.
Yeah, it implied that you needed to have a bachelor's degree in planning and maybe some other kinds of experience. You certainly don't need a bachelor's degree in planning to be a town planner.
Yeah, that was one of my suggestions, was, bachelor's degree in planning or related
Or
field.
related field. I think the only comment I said was that GIS is not preferable or essential.
right, yeah.
And stuff like that, and I got some comments back there.
Martha, I was curious if you had any changes you'd like to see made.
Well, there are a few things in here. There are references to the planning board secretary, which we actually did have at one point, but we no longer have. So I think that should just come out.
Right, in both those, it said that the secretary, is that you?
Just secretary.
No,
You are the
no,
secretary.
a
No, we actually
secretarial
had-
help.
We
Oh,
had,
the
we-
secretary of health used to prepare the agenda.
Right, yes, yeah.
right, we used to have a paid secretary who would take the minutes and get the agenda. Well, actually, I think probably Sarah Creighton probably got the agendas out, but
Yeah.
anyway, we don't have that staff person anymore, so think those items need to be changed.
Are you up to the physical demands, like sitting?
Yes,
I
right,
think I can
sitting for long
sit.
periods.
I think I can sit.
It's extraordinary, the
I'm
things
not
that
sh-
they require.
I'm not sure
Right.
that I can speak all the time. Listening, probably okay. There were a couple of things, though, in the new one that probably should go in here. I think it's important for the person to have a valid driver's license and the ability to traverse rough and uneven terrain on site
Yes,
visits and things like
absolutely.
that.
Excellent.
Right, yes.
And
How-
the only thing I didn't know is, I mean, there are certain things that I do which are not related to the planning board, that are, you know, either for selectmen or other things, like the Border to Boston or other stuff, and that's not necessarily part of a planner's job description, but they're things that I do, and I don't know if it's appropriate to.
Add
That's
that in.
one of the things I did notice, is when I read this at first, I was expecting it to not just be about planning board responsibilities related, but actually more board of selectmen, things you do for the town, town administrator and stuff.
Right, and some of that came into this 2008 rewrite that was done, which kind of came out of specific circumstances. So I'm not, you know, I'm not sure how appropriate it is to put some of that stuff in there or not. I mean, I think any planner's position sort of evolves based on the dynamics of the town.
And your own abilities.
Right.
And they kind of fit together, so it's very difficult to take Martha's very specific expertise and extrapolate from that and put it into a job description. So for example, one of the things that you did do is you worked on the RFPs for the two schools.
Right,
It may be that a planner could do that, but you were uniquely qualified for that because of your architectural experience, in my opinion. Not everyone is going to be an architect, so I don't know, but I think just saying, availing the planner to various land use and other property issues of the town is maybe a nice generic way to present that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Tracy
I-
would probably incorporate something of that language in there, wouldn't she?
she might, I don't know, and I don't know whether she's had any input.
Linda's, Martha's speaking, did you hear what she said?
He did know.
She gotcha.
Right, you want to repeat it, please?
I don't know who has reviewed this.
Yeah, I'm going to say that was the other thing, because the one thing, it's funny, I bet to myself, when I read all of this, that you guys would do exactly what you have, which is to miss the one thing in there which came out of the contentious world the second one was written in, you know, atmosphere it was written in. But to my mind, not because of the fact I was, you know, involved up to my neck in it, but it's important, and that is, it spells out, whereas the first one doesn't, who they report to, and who, in fact, hires them, on what basis. And I think that is important.
Hire,
She's talking about, because right now there is some confusion whether, originally it was a planning board, but then it was made clear that it was a planning board and board of selectmen.
And basically what that, the 2008 thing does is come to the compromise permission, you know, position we came to, was that it was the recommendation of the planning board, because that person essentially was working, you know, majorly with and for the planning board, and that this was something that.
but on the organizational chart, the town planner reports to the town administrator.
No.
Right, and I,
Or, yes, reports to, but is still appointed by.
by the
right?
selectmen.
By the
Right.
selectmen, so, you
And
know,
that, and that's the way it's done everywhere.
right,
The governing body appoints the planner.
Right, but
yes,
this,
exactly. I was gonna say, having been involved in, you know, ironically, Martha and I were the person who did the search for Martha. I know how that sounds, but it's not as bad as it might. Anyway, one of the things I learned in that process was that all of the people that I either screened or we interviewed asked those questions. In other words, essentially, who's gonna hire me, who can fire me, and who am I working for and with? And so I think, and your job description needs that clearly stated, even though it may be a standard in the biz.
And I think it is different. I mean, having, at the last planning conference that I went to, there was a session on town planners, and it was across the board in terms of, you know, who can hire, who can fire,
Right.
who they report to. And it actually, you know,
Even
creates.
in a town meeting, selectmen's
Yeah,
perspective?
yeah, and for some planners, it was creating a really kind of schizophrenic situation.
Well, Newburyport is
them.
really bizarre. The planning director of Newburyport serves at the pleasure of the mayor.
Of the mayor.
Right,
So anytime there's an election, they're hanging by a thread.
right.
And usually the thread breaks and there's a new planning director.
That's true with any city,
Is it really?
any city,
Every city is like that?
every city.
Oh.
You serve at the pleasure of the mayor.
Oh, that seems
Unless
kinda weird.
there's a city manager.
Pardon me?
Unless there's a city manager.
Oh, okay.
And also, unless
And then
you-
if you have a city manager, the city manager makes the appointment.
unless
Do
your
you want to
name was
address this
Moses.
now, or no?
Well, I think it may be, and it would be a little bit different even from the 2008 version, because at that time, we had a three-person board of selectmen and no town administrator. So I think probably that portion of it should be updated to reflect what the actual situation is.
Yeah, but I really do. I mean, I think that there's nothing in the one they've redrafted in terms of its form that addresses those things at all. and I
Right,
think
right,
that's-
because it wasn't,
Yeah.
you know, in 2006, it
Right.
wasn't.
No, there's no way.
The thing is, I got confused. That's obviously, I guess it is, yeah, it has to be in both, but you certainly have to articulate that in a job description for a job when you're advertising for a job.
Sure.
We
And
have it, we
actually,
have an
that's-
org
is that
chart.
the- Right. Are we close to finishing on this issue?
I think, I mean, unless there are any major comments, I'll just sort of
Okay.
take this general conversation and put together some notes and send them back to Diane, who's the one who sent this out.
Okay, okay. You all right with it?
Mm-hmm,
Okay,
fine.
everybody? Liaison reports?
One more thing before we go there.
Mhm.
I was wondering if the board was ready to maybe have Martha contact the Daily News to find out if anybody would be interested in filling some of the future vacancies on the planning board. Remember, that's how we did that when we were looking for, fill your position, we did that when we were looking for George. It doesn't necessarily mean that whoever applies is gonna be hired, but that's how we get some unique candidates.
I would suggest we wait until after the election.
Let's wait, I think it's a good idea. Let's wait until the election, and our first meeting after
It's the 21st,
is the 21st, after the town meeting,
the
and
day
let's
after the
discuss it
town
then.
meeting. And we will, at that point, Susan reminded me today that we will need to renew appointments, like to the Conservation Commission.
We do that every year after the election, yeah.
Right,
Right.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay?
So it's just, I want to make sure it was everybody's
Yeah.
on the same page.
Right, on the 21st,
Yeah,
we'll have that
okay.
discussion. Okay?
Thank you.
Board of Selectmen, do you have anything you want to talk about?
Not really. Last night, there were a couple of interesting dog hearings.
Were there lots of people?
A few.
You've never been involved in this, have you?
Yes, I have.
Dave Mountain did talk about a potential grant funding source for breaching of the Larkin Dam, and the selectmen agreed to kind of look into that, to kind of, if the opportunity comes up or it seems appropriate to follow through on it. So Dave and I are going to be working on that,
Okay.
getting the grant proposal together. We're also looking into, I guess there's going to be another round of FEMA grants. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be in town, but Mike Riley is going to go to that. We're going to look at that potentially for some of the middle road issues. I don't know if we can use it for any of the work that we're planning to do in Byfield, because the culvert down there needs to be, and the head wall.
Needs a lot, yeah.
Needs a lot of work, but I'm not sure that those funds are appropriate for what needs to be done.
Well, they just surfaced the road outside of the yellow school today.
Oh, they did?
No kidding.
What?
Town,
No, I think maybe it was paid for, I don't know,
developer? Did the developer have that as a
On
improvement
the
cost?
extension of Lund Street, or was it?
Yeah, it's the Lunt Street section between Church Street and Central. And I drove past and nearly drove off the road because.
I thought that was being held off because of potential water main replacement.
Well,
No.
exactly, so I wondered whether this was something that the people who are developing that into a home decided they didn't want to live, on the edge of a bomb site.
They could have.
I hadn't heard anything
I
about
don't
that. I'll
think that
look
was a
into it.
requirement.
And, no,
Was
and,
No.
as far as the water main is concerned, we've been advised that it does not need to be replaced.
Okay.
Which one?
I wasn't suggesting that it
Seriously.
needed to be. I just
No, I know.
heard that it had to, just to clarify.
No, I know.
I think.
School.
Church Street.
MVPC, anything, David?
No, we haven't met.
Okay.
until
John?
April.
Yeah, last month, at Concom meeting, Marlene had filed a request for determination,
On, right.
which it turns out anybody can file relative to Scotland Road.
Michael.
And, right, and we voted to call it a positive determination. And so they will have to file a notice of intent theoretically. And nobody's heard any response from them
That's what I've heard.
as of a couple of days
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
I
Well,
didn't talk to Doug today about it, but as of the weekend, we had not heard.
okay.
So that'll be extremely interesting.
Is that it from Concom?
That's it.
There's a meeting tomorrow night. But
And
I
you're
won't be able to report back to
and
you
I was just gonna
after.
say.
Yeah. So,
Could, well, you could maybe send me an email if there's
Yeah,
anything,
If there's anything of interest.
and I can report at the
yeah, there's
next
only two
meeting.
things on the agenda. Yes.
Okay. All that on Plum Island? No?
Yeah, both of them.
Yeah.
Who are the ZBA members? Have they changed up at all?
No.
Someone asked me recently and I said, no, I'm aware of.
Okay, it's 9:06, and I'm gonna call for the meeting to be adjourned.
So moved.
But,
Second? What?
I said, but
What?
everybody needs to stay.
You're right. Well, we have to adjourn first and
Yes.
so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
Did you second it?